Well, welcome to Colorado, which is the last place you'd expect to find the craziest four-wheel drive, open-top, convertible van. This thing is nuts, and I've got its owner right here, Larry.
Hi.
Larry is an enthusiast of these crazy, weird, strange Japanese cars. What the heck are we looking at, Larry?
So this is a 1994 Subaru Sambar, and I actually bought it in Japan last year and brought it over at that time. So I've had it since October. It took about 3 months to import it in. So it's classified as a K car, and it's 660 cc's. And K cars in Japan are limited to how wide and how long they can be. And then you get a tax advantage, and then you get it's cheaper to register. But they are limited to 64 horsepower max.
64?
64.
So that's all you get?
That's all you get. And this only gets 55.
Only 55. So as I understand it, maybe you can correct me, but every Japanese vehicle manufacturer kind of has a version of this.
They do. They do. So Honda makes what's called an Acty, and Suzuki has what's called the Carry or the Every, and Daihatsu has one. I can't remember the name of it. Hijet, that's called.
Very good.
And then there's... usually they're based on the truck platform. So the Japanese mini trucks, they base it on the same platform and they make a van out of it. And they're very common in Japan, this kind of car. Usually delivery trucks or the post office uses them, or fire department will make a fire truck out of them, things like that. So they're very common in Japan, but in the US they're very rare.
All right, so I'm going to have Larry demonstrate one of the craziest things I've seen in all of automotive, maybe history, but maybe it's common, but this is legitimately a convertible van. Can you, Larry, hit the button and show how this works? So there's this giant glass roof, and it's like a clamshell. It's not just a flat piece of glass. And watch this. What in the name of all that is holy is going on there?
It stops for safety, and then it closes on the way.
Okay, can you open it back up so we see how that works? So this is a power-operated glass panel on a passenger van. Larry, I gotta ask. I mean, come on over here. What is going on? Is this like a common thing? Was this custom? Was this stock?
Yes, and in the 90s, these cars were fairly popular, and the Japanese makers were kind of competing over, what features they could add to their car. They don't do that anymore, but in the 90s, you got all these weird features. So most of the K vans that were sold at that time offered a glass roof like that, but Subaru is the most common, like the Mitsubishi version or the Suzuki version are very rare.
And now I think we need to show...
So you have to really pull on that hard. But here, it's easier for me to...
So this is a passenger version, and what we have here are 2 front seats, 2 rear seats, but that's just the beginning of the fun. Can you kind of talk about how this works?
Sure. So everything folds completely flat. So it was, for the delivery vehicles, it was so you could fill it up with stuff.
The whole seat kind of pivots into what looks to be the floor, and the result of that, look at this.
It's completely flat, yeah.
So you're a fairly tall guy. Can you sleep in a van like this?
You might even fit too. So I swear you can fit completely in here.
All right.
So I've had a Harley in here. I've had a full-size sofa. It doesn't look long, but I think it's a little over 6 feet 4 inches or something like that.
And then can you fold the seats up, because I want to show the next party trick, and that's the fact that the front seats are actually not just fixed into place. They will, believe it or not, swivel. So kind of like an old school Volkswagen Westphalia. Check this out. You can move the front cushion up, and then they will swivel around. That is awesome, dude.
So this was another option that you could add.
Unreal. So. This is like, I mean...
a party car.
There's some weird cars out there. There's some cool cars out there, but this is one of the most bizarre. And that's before we take a look at the engine. And the hood? Well, the hood is the bumper, right? Can you show that?
Sure.
So you lift open the tailgate, and there's a little lever.
Right here. And then... and there's 2 places, there's a cover here to access the motor as well.
So what are we looking at?
We're looking at a Subaru Clover 4. It's a straight 4, but it's completely flat. So kind of like a half boxer.
Okay.
Motor. 660cc supercharged, and we've got 55 horsepower. But it's for here it works okay because a car I think total is about 17 to 1800 pounds.
Okay, so 55 horsepower. We're at 6,000 feet above sea level. Can you do highway speeds?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Again, a lot depends on the tires you have. So I have the stock tires, which are 12-inch, and it's all kind of based on your RPM. So the car's happy cruising around 4,500 to 5,000 RPM, and at that speed, you're going to go about 60. And
60.
But if you add the 14-inch tires, that brings everything about 700 RPM less. So you can cruise happily about 60 to 65. Well, stock tires about 55, 60.
5,000 RPM at 60 miles an hour. What is the red line?
The red line is 8,500, although you get a warning at 7,500. That's where it goes yellow, and then red at 85.
And then 4 or 5-speed gearbox?
It's a 6-speed. It's actually a 5-speed forward, then an extra low gear.
And 4-wheel drive?
4-wheel drive.
So supercharged, manual transmission, 4-wheel drive, target top. Unreal. Larry, I can't believe you're letting me try out your van.
I always force people to drive my cars.
I really appreciate this. So walk me through the transmission. So you probably don't need EL in normal situations.
You'll never use that.
And is there a lockout? How do you know if you're going into it?
It just grinds in. It's not the best. It's kind of like
So do you think that's first?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that's first.
Gotcha.
You'll know it. It's pretty obvious.
This is the lightest steering I have felt.
I know. It's a real marshmallow, and the suspension is so soft because it's the passenger version. So
wow, it feels super well made though.
Yeah, it is, and that's why of the 25-year-old cars, you see a lot of Subarus and Hondas.
Do you mind if we roll these windows
a
little bit for the wind on the?
Sure. And that one might be finicky on that side.
Okay.
So if it is, just slap it. There. It's automatic, but I fixed it once, but I didn't glue it, and then it's like a thing that holds the contact down. I knew I'd roll this one up. And then you want air conditioning?
If you want.
We have that open.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Go get some air there.
Look at that. So, the thing that just strikes me right away, and I know we just touched on it, but if you get in a car, an American car from 1994, everything feels kind of rattly and loosely thrown together. This little van feels beautifully assembled.
Yeah, they made them well, and the Hondas as well. The Acty, I really like the Honda version of the van as well, but it's naturally aspirated, so at altitude it just doesn't perform. It's really slow.
Okay, I gotcha.
It's like the Honda Beat just was. It's a really well made car, and you see a lot of the Honda Beats around. You don't see as many Suzuki Carries or Everys. The Every's a van that carries the truck.
Okay.
From this era. But you see a lot of Subarus.
I just can't help but giggle. I mean, it is such an amazing experience being this close to the front of something.
Yes.
This close to you, that close to that side of the van. It's such a narrow little machine. But I thought that you get in it and it feels like, because it looks like it's going to fall over. Just standing still.
Yeah. It corners quite well. So everybody's like, it must tip over. But it doesn't. I've taken it in, heavy Colorado winds, 40 or 50 miles an hour, and I never, it's very much like a T3, the Volkswagen T3?
I do, yeah.
It's very similar, so it's not good, but it's not that bad, you just kind of it's like doing a boat, you have to steer into the wind. And,
the steering, this is going to be the most overboosted steering.
Right?
It is like a marshmallow, I like that, yeah. All right, I'm going to go for a downshift here.
Go for it.
Transmission feels very good.
Yeah, it's not bad. And these transmissions last forever. Okay. So that's why when people sell these, it's the 5-speed is the most popular because although I like the eCVT better, it's got a higher, it's just better
like it
range.
More.
I did well because you cruise in it. I daily this thing. I put 12,000 miles on this thing in 11 months.
Sorry, hold up.
So
12,000 miles.
Yes. So you see, I'm at 92. When I imported it, I had 72,000 kilometers in October, and I've put 20,000 kilometers on it in 11 months.
Unbelievable.
I have to commute to take my son to school, and then just for my job, taking stuff from the post office to the airport or picking stuff up.
And so do you drive this in the winter?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It goes great in the snow. It's wonderful in the snow.
Never once you thought, maybe I should get like a full-size vehicle. This
works better. Because the seats fold flat, and and then I can carry somebody when I need to, or I can fill it up with stuff. I had a full-size Harley in it.
Wow.
And a full-size sofa. And
so the gauges, very easy to read. I've got a TAC, which is like a motorcycle TAC.
Yeah.
And then kilometers up to 140. Have you had it up to 140?
I did. I actually have it on I put it on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I think I had it up to 130.
So someone told me once that some of these older vans and K cars had a little buzzer. What is that about?
Oh boy, yeah, those are horrible. In the 80s, early 80s, they put buzzers in your car and they buried them deep, and they were incredibly annoying.
Okay.
To remind you not to go over the speed limit. So a regular car, it would come around about 100 kilometers an hour, which is 60.
Yep.
And on the K car, it would be at 80.
Wow.
And it would get louder. And so people would pay extra to get them removed at the dealer.
Okay.
But the Japanese manufacturers thought they were doing people a favor, a reminder, hey, you're at that speed limit.
Right.
Keep it at the speed limit. But it was hated. So, but these don't have it. I think they got rid of them in like 91, 92.
Okay.
So, but I remember driving like 4.5 hours in my K car with that buzzer going, my headset on, and music as loud as I could. I went from Niigata, where I used to live. That's like the Arkansas of Japan, to Tokyo, and there was a highway. It's like a 4.5 hour trip.
All right, I'm going for a downshift, 4,000 RPM.
You can take it all the way up to 6 or 7 or.
Whoa, dude! It's got some beans.
Yeah, it does. That's why I was like the Subaru. The Subaru every van that even has better beans. That will do 85, no problem at all.
That little Suzuki.
Yeah, the Suzuki
okay,
van.
So I would call this, especially from the classic car world, more than adequate.
Absolutely.
Right. You hear 660, right, cc's,
Yeah.
and you think that is going to be undrivable. But I'm at 9,000 feet above sea level right now.
Yeah.
And it just works.
Yeah, and the way the gearing is, so if it's between 0 and 50,
okay,
you can keep up with anybody. It's no problem at all. You're not like you're not causing people to slow down a lot. It's when you get to the higher gears. Getting on the highway is where you're slow, and so I bring it up to as high as 65.
And any reliability issues over the last 12,000 miles?
No. There's lots of niggles because it's an old car. Like the window sometimes doesn't go down, or the I'm trying to think what else. My vacuum. There's a slight vacuum leak, I think, so my RPMs don't go down as low as they should.
And AC works.
Yeah, and it's cold here. If I'll turn it on later, or I can turn it on now, you'll be shocked. It's like, oh my god, it comes out cold. It blows me away that I can have really good AC. Yeah.
Wow. Does that slow the van down?
It does. Oh boy. Yeah. You have to turn it off when you go up a hill. You lose about a third or maybe a quarter of your horsepower. I'm guessing 10 to 12 horsepower. It sucks up.
Is there any kind of community of these things in Colorado and in the U.S.? What is that like?
Yeah, there's not a Sambar community. I think there's one or two others that I know of. I know there's a white one, but I don't know if it's running or not.
Okay.
Like this. There's a great one. There's a bunch of them on Facebook, and there's I think it's like there's a K truck forum, but the best one is the Subaru Sambar Squad, or I think they call it the Sambar Squad Facebook group, and they're super active. If you ask a question, usually like in 10 minutes, somebody's gonna have like, the specs and everything. They translated the manual,
Wow.
So you have the Japanese work manual or whatever, that the garage would have in English. They went in and translated that. They're charging for it. It's $50, but it's worth every penny.
So if someone is looking to buy one of these, what should they be looking for? Is rust a problem? Is mechanical a problem? What typically goes wrong on these?
Rust is always the biggest issue, but it's not that bad on these in general. But mine's actually a rusty example.
This is a rusty one.
Yes, yeah, and it's not bad. I mean, it's got a few plates. None of it goes through. It can all be sanded out for the most part. So.
Does this have ABS too?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Let's try.
What?
Some of them do.
Some of them do. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I don't think it does, because they'd probably advertise it everywhere.
And does this do pretty well in the snow, you said?
Yeah, it does really well in the snow. The only issue is if it gets over like 12 inches, then you have clearance issues. Then you're making mountains under the car, and you get high
centered.
High centered, yeah.
And like this type of van, you'll never see it in the States, but is this a fairly common sight in Japan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially delivery, you'll see them everywhere. The post office. I'm not sure which version they're driving now, but you'll see the Daihatsu version, the Hi-Jet, or the Acty. I know that they have the Acty. I think they also drove the Subaru.
So you have like a small business in Japan. You need to deliver flowers, or you're delivering food. It would be something
absolutely
like this.
Yeah.
What about farmers?
Absolutely, they use these, but they prefer the trucks. The trucks are wonderful, and I think there's one guy I know has one in Colorado, and I'd love to introduce you because the sides fold.
Oh, they do.
And they have dump trucks. There are the most amazing trucks, and that's why I think they're going to eventually sell them here, because they have the crash protection now, and they can do everything. They're tiny. They work so well, and they're efficient. You get like 40 miles to the gallon as long as you don't drive them on the highway.
Larry,
they work great.
This was a real treat. I really appreciate you letting me try out one of the coolest driving experiences of the year. I drove a McLaren pretty recently, 720.
Oh, yeah, it's very similar, right?
Yeah, this is better. This is more exciting.
Hey, but rear engine.
Rear engine, supercharged. So you're a very interesting, very cool guy, because you live part-time in Japan, you buy these in Japan, you do all the stuff yourself. But if you were like an unknowledgeable American like myself, and you wanted to go out and buy one from like an importer, what kind of prices would you be looking at for something like this?
They used to be cheaper. They used to a year ago they were like 6 or 7, but the prices are going up. So I think they go for around 7,500 to up to 15, depending on the condition, and if it has a VW kit in front and things like that.
So that may sound, from Larry's standpoint, to be a lot of money, but from like a collector vehicle American standpoint, we're still talking kind of at the very bottom of the interesting collector world.
Yeah.
So still super attainable. I can't get over just how funky and weird it is. I mean, if you want to be unique, the first thing people do is go buy like a Mustang and turbocharge it. But this is way cooler
and way more fun. Girls like it way more. That's if you're wanting to impress the girls, this works much better than a Mustang.
And we are obviously out here doing a little bit of off-roading. Now, you can take them a little bit off-road because they do have a super low range, but you were mentioning clearance is kind of the limiting factor.
Yeah. And then some people have really raised them. And then, so mine is the automatic four-wheel drive version. There's also one that has a transfer case, and then you can manually put it in. So I had another one that I had sold, a green classic, and that had the manual four-wheel drive.
Unreal.
Yeah, so depending on which one you have. And then some of them have a switch where you can lock the rear differential.
Was it hard to learn how to drive this in America, being on the wrong side of the van, on the wrong side of the road?
No, to be honest, driving on the right side is not hard at all. You can pick it up within a few hours, to be honest. The hardest part is getting the windshield wiper and blinker.
Okay, so they're flipped.
Yeah, they're flipped. So it's on the right side as opposed to the left. So every time you go to turn on your blinker, you hit the windshield wiper.
Well, if you want a Targa with an 8,000 RPM rev line, a manual transmission, and all-wheel drive, don't get a Porsche. Get an old Subaru van. Automatic transmission too, right?
Yeah, the ECVT.
Which can be problematic?
Yes, yeah. So it's an early ECVT or CVT. So
interesting.
Yeah, so they have reliability issues.
Larry, this has been an absolute treat. I really appreciate you letting us take a look at an extremely rare, at least in the States, extremely unusual little rig. And be sure to head over to TFL Off-Road, because coming up soon, we're going to get this on a little bit of off-road. We also have a Delica, and Larry's just been a great guy helping us out with this video.